Colleen Foy. Welcome inside the Crazy Ant Farm. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my goodness, we are so excited. This guy's a huge Shondaland fan.
It's true.
Okay, Station 19. Oh my goodness, we're
Wow.
both fans of the show. I'm a fan
Oh.
of Lonestar 911, and one of my favorite episodes was definitely yours. So we're going to talk about that. And
Amazing.
And anybody who's known me for any period of time knows that I am a massive Marilyn Monroe fan. Have been my whole life. So I'm super excited to talk to you about that upcoming project.
Oh, cool.
So, we've got a little bit to talk about with you.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Let's
Right.
get comfy.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Right. But what we like to do to kind of start off the interviews is kind of give a background on how you got started, right, for the listeners who might not be familiar with you. So was acting something always on the radar? Was it something you always kind of wanted to do, or how did you kind of fall into it?
Yeah, acting was always something that I wanted to do. And I never, as a kid, was not thinking of it as necessarily a profession that was even possible for me, living in the Midwest, having no connections. But I was performing all the time. I mean, in hindsight, I was probably a very annoying child.
Yeah.
Just always with the song and dance and making my parents sit on a couch and watch and, forcing my siblings to be a part of it. And I was just always performing.
There you go.
Always. Yeah. And then I did all the plays, all the musicals in high school, studied it in college and have been doing it for a very, very long time.
I love that.
You're like 22. How long can it be? Come on.
Thank you so much. Yes, 22.
Goodness. Well, you
Yes,
said Midwest.
absolutely.
Where Midwest?
Wisconsin.
Ooh, very
And-
interesting.
yeah.
Oh, cheesehead.
Yeah, that's right. I'm from Milwaukee. I'm from the big city in Wisconsin, which is Milwaukee.
There you
and
go.
It turns out is not a huge city in the scheme of things. So,
Right? No,
yeah.
I understand. I'm from Indianapolis, so when you said Midwest, I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" But yeah, I mean, just trying to venture out and go other places because you realize like where you're at is not necessarily the best place to be when you want to jump into the entertainment industry. So
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit. Coming from Milwaukee and then going to LA, was that transition something crazy huge that you thought, oh man, let's see what happens?
Before she starts, I'm just gonna say, I mean, Milwaukee's not that bad. I mean, it's Happy Days in Laverne and Shirley.
I mean,
bro.
you know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, and all the cheese one could ever
Of
want.
course.
Okay, so what was that transition like?
Okay, so it was something that I had planned for and thought about for a very long time. When I was in college, I did a play. I think it was my sophomore or junior year, my first professional play in the city of Milwaukee, and some of these fantastic artists that I had really looked up to for years. When I finally got the chance to work with them, they said, "If you want to make money in this, get out of the city.
Right.
You got to get out," because there was a married couple and he had just turned 50 and had a heart attack and they were uninsured. But they had made some of the most amazing art for years in this
Yeah.
city. And she was like, if you want to have like a foundation and some stability in life, you've got to make money at this and you have to get out of the city. So I had been plotting for quite a long time. And by plotting, I mean, I had interviewed everyone I'd ever met who had moved to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know some of like the business stuff, right? Of course, right? How do you get an agent? There's a commercial agent and theatrical. What does that mean? What are the two? How are the two different? Do they look for things differently? What are headshots like? How do you format your resume? And then I also wanted to know some basic survival things. So I was very interested in people's budgets. What do you spend on groceries? What do you spend on gas? The first job that you got, how did you get it? How far did you drive? How long did you drive for? When you meet casting directors, how much does it cost to take one of their classes, and how often do you meet them, and how long before you actually see results? So I had really put in a lot of work up front before ever driving my Mercury Tracer out to Los Angeles. Yeah. So, and the first year out of college, I was touring with a theater company. So I was making money, but also they paid for my housing and for my transportation. So I was squirreling away money for a long time. And so by the time I actually got out to Los Angeles, I felt like I had the strongest foundation I could have made for myself. Still, there were a lot of weaknesses that I had, things that you kind of can't explain it to someone. They have to experience
Right.
it
Oh yeah.
themselves.
Oh yeah.
And a couple of those experiences were like really rude awakenings. But I gave myself the best foundation I could. I knew that it was like all up to me. It was all up to me and all on my shoulders. And so I wanted to just come out with a little bit of knowledge foundation, if that makes sense.
I mean, we're sitting here like, wow,
Yeah.
because I single-handedly, that is the most prepared we have ever had any guest say that they were prior to going out there. That was like a war plan, like going out there. That is just like fantastic. And the fact that you had some money to go out there.
Yeah,
You were like literally
absolutely.
the first guest we have ever had on that said, well, this is how it happened. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. Like,
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
oh my goodness, everybody listening right now, that's the way to do it right there. Like, oh my gosh, man.
Thank you. I didn't want to move back. I really, really wanted to be a success.
Yes.
So yeah. Thank you for saying that.
Of course. Well, so you said you were touring, right? You were doing theater. You did all the plays and everything. Was theater the goal? Was that like what you were going out there to do? I want to continue to work in that field and kind of make money there? Or did you know that you eventually wanted to jump to film and television? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I wanted to jump to film and television, and a couple things came to light for me. One being that I really knew that if I wanted to get into TV and film, they say it's getting in while you're young is better than doing theater for the first 20 years after I moved out to Los Angeles, and then around 40, then trying to get into the business. I just knew that would be more challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember when Scarlett Johansson won a Tony Award, and I thought, okay, movie star, so you got to be a movie star to do the theater. Okay,
Right.
all right. So I really thought it will always be there for me. It will always be there for me. But I just know that the TV and film business, or at least in my mind, was harder to break into, and I wanted every advantage on my side.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Did you find going from the stage to in front of the camera difficult? Because, we've had a lot of guests on that started in theater, and it's all about acting big and playing to the back, right? And kind of, so did you find that difficult?
Yeah, absolutely. And really what was most difficult about it is I knew that I was theater trained and was sort of set up that way. I was sort of my thermometer was sort of set for theater. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I kept reverting to theater. Not thermometer, thermostat.
It's all good. We know what you meant.
Oh, goodness gracious. And I knew where I wanted to be. I knew what I wanted to be doing is TV and film work. And I was like, I don't know what the transition is. I know I'm here, and I know I want to get here. What is that transition?
Right.
That was hardest for people to, that was the hardest for me to figure out and break down. And I also was I felt like, dang, people don't respect theater out here. It felt like, that was kind of blew me away.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like people who can do theater are some of the most talented individuals I've ever met in my life. So to sort of feel a little bit of the disrespect, kind of oh, you've done theater, really, really bothered me.
I can imagine.
Yeah. But what I have found, if you don't mind me saying, is I think of, if I am on stage and I am a light source, my light has to shine to the sides, to the people in the back, all the way in the balcony. They have to get my gestures and my voice and my expression. But instead of keeping that light out like that for theater, if you sort of bring it in, make it as compact and potent as a laser, and just talk to one person. So I'm just making eye contact with you, and I'm just talking with you, rather than talking to you, but also talking so that everyone can see me.
Yeah.
So I keep thinking about lasering it in, what I call lasering it in, so that because I don't want to change the character work that I've done or the environment, the relationships, the stakes, all that good stuff that I have. It's just for me really a matter of like making my light source a little more compact and potent for camera.
There you go.
Yeah, that's very freaking interesting. I love hearing that because I love hearing different people's processes because everything's different for each individual and some things work for some people and some things don't work for other people. So I love hearing different people's thought process. But I want to talk about the big one, the one that I'm super excited about, Station 19. Man, oh man, do I love Shondaland. Literally everything. It's so good. It's so good. Are you watching Grey's Anatomy right now?
I am, and Station 19,
Well,
and
yeah.
woo! I don't know when this will air, but they just had a crossover event last week that
Yep.
like blew me away.
Yeah.
I
Just blew me
know.
away.
I know. Do you,
No, go ahead.
I'm just gonna get into the show now. I mean, do you think Link and Amelia will get back together?
Oh my God. I think it would be great.
I hope so. I hope
think
so.
it would be great, man. I just love Amelia Shepherd. I think they would be great together. I think she just, I mean, when he proposed to her,
Yeah.
just like the look on her face,
Yeah,
like,
utter shock.
Yeah, I think she'll come around. I think she'll come. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah,
Well,
you never know.
You know what we won't see? Who didn't get a chance to propose? Jack. And I've forgiven you. It's okay. It's fine. You did the right thing, but it still hurt. It's fine. So seriously though, the way it kind of ended, there's a chance you could come back, right? Like,
That's
I mean, yeah,
right.
there's always that chance you could come back. I mean, that
That's
was
right.
there, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the building of the relationship, right? And I think a lot of people have kind of like been in that situation, right? Where it's not really like a romantic love, but you are in love with the idea of a family and being wanted and being in a place where you have something like that. And I mean, I think your story arc went over so well with the fans because a lot of people have found themselves in that situation, right?
Gosh, thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, I think so. And I really think there were unique factors at play of
Sure.
like, just getting out of like an abusive relationship. Jack had the trauma of Rigo's death from
Yep.
the season before.
Yep.
Also the pandemic where
Yep.
like they can't spend time with each other until Marcia goes into the hospital and he has to come live with us.
Right.
Like there were just a lot of factors that are so unique to our story, but actually like every human and every relationship has these crazy unique factors, whether it's everything. I mean, it could be the pandemic, but also
Right.
like just your everyday health issues or kids
right.
or working perhaps multiple jobs or wanting to go back to school and thinking, do I give up school so I can spend more time with this person? Then who will I be? Will I always resent them? So that's one of the things that I love about Shondaland is the challenges and the obstacles of every character seem so extreme,
Right.
but they're actually quite similar to what I think a lot of humans go through.
I mean-
And yeah,
No, I was going to say, yeah, definitely, because I felt like I connected with Jack because I feel like when you're an inherently good human being, a good person,
Yeah.
you don't want to not help people. So, you know,
Yes.
here's this woman and she's a mother and she's got this child and all of this, not to even mention going into the whole hearing impaired kind of storyline and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And Jack is just this good guy. He's like, how can I not help get her out of this relationship? How can I not do the right thing by her? Because I feel like that's what you do when you're a good person, right? You can't just walk away from that. So I think a
Absolutely.
lot of guys connected to him. Is like, no, yeah, that's the right thing to do. That's the right thing to do. So I know I did, and then I was still heartbroken when he was going to propose. And didn't. It's like, I know this is right, but damn it,
Oh man, I love it. Yes, I love Jack. I love the character of Jack. He is a good person in there.
Yes.
And I really do. I would love for Inara to be part of it, but I really do hope that Jack gets a happy life. A happy life. Yeah.
Agreed. And I mean, you brought it up talking about Shondaland. She and the whole production company in general are so good about touching on the topics that need to be talked about, like the abusive relationship and the just LGBTQ community and just so many different things. And I think it's very important because people need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in situations and having that conversation. So I think Shondaland and all of her shows are a great bridge builder to having that conversation and just having that open dialogue with anyone you're watching the show with, or Twitter. And we know Twitter's kind of crazy sometimes, but just to have that open conversation with anyone and everyone that is willing to have it. So I just love everything they put out.
Oh, good. Me too. Yeah, I love that they have therapy sessions.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I really love that they bring in the idea of a program for Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous.
Yep.
I love that they show them attending meetings, whether it's via Zoom, spending time with their sponsor. Yeah, it's kind of incredible. Like, they go there, and it's not always cute, right?
No,
It
not
can't
at all.
always be wrapped up in a bow. But the more that I feel TV and film can reflect the actual human experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, the more it becomes a tool for actually growth and healing and more compassion and understanding. And I know that sounds very much sort of... it just sounds so extra, right? Peace and understanding and love for each other.
Right.
But that's what we're trying to do, is feel as storytellers.
That's right.
No matter
Exactly.
whatever way that is. Yeah.
We talk about that all the time. That was the purpose of our film, too, because we believe in the fact that the best way to inform and educate people is through entertainment. Because if you just kind of sit down and have a conversation about uncomfortable situations, people don't really want to talk because they're uncomfortable. But if you get them in front of a screen and they're watching and they're relating, and then it becomes a little bit more easy to talk about what you just saw. And I think I think it is good that storytellers and creators are able to do that, because it's needed, and if we can't do it, who can, right? So I think that's great. I do want to talk about, did you know, or did they approach you for the role because of your background? Because for anybody, because we didn't really talk about that with your past coming into the acting, but with sign language and everything, you actually toured. You were the only hearing person in like an all-deaf tour, right? You went on tour with this like group, with theater group, which is incredible. When you auditioned for that role, did you know that it was going to involve a child with hearing impairment, or how was that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I auditioned for this role, for the role of Inara. It was written as a 1-episode guest star, and I had been in for that casting office, Linda Lowy's casting office. That was my 15th audition.
Yeah.
And I had been what they call pinned for the role, which is like one of 2 people they're looking at. I had been called back, director sessions, and had never ever booked for them. And so I was brought in for this 1 episode, and I was like, well, if there's any time I'm going to get it, it's going to be this one. and then I have this experience where I go into the waiting room and I'm like, oh, they have that person here. Oh, this person's here. Amazing. These like incredible actors who also know sign language. So I thought, well, dang it. Maybe the next one. But I went in and gave my audition, and then booked it. And then Gray Damon, who plays Jack Gibson, he and I had we had good chemistry, but I had also been trying, when we were on location, to build chemistry with him and Ansel, who plays Marcus, trying to build chemistry because Ansel was very isolated, not having anyone to sort of chit chat. So I was building the bridge, sort of making sure that things were comfortable, that he was talked to, that he could tell this joke to the director. So we had a lot of chemistry. Sounds like such an empty word for it, but we had a lot of like amazing experiences together for that first episode. And by the time that episode wrapped, the director, Stacey K. Black, who's now an executive producer of the show, she said, I'm pitching you to the writers as a love interest for Jack. And I said, okay. So they ended up bringing me back for, I think, 13 or 14 more episodes.
Yeah.
So it was just wonderful. It was just so good. But I think storyline wise, Jack needed a win, right? At the end of season 3, after Rigo's death, people in his own within the Station 19 were upset at him, and they were like, "You don't do that, man! Like that's one of our brothers! Like you
Right.
don't." So Jack needed a little bit of redemption.
Yes.
And so I think it was kind of perfect timing for him to be redeemed via rescuing this mother and child, and then sort of becoming a bit of a father figure, similar to Pruitt for Ansel. So yeah, it was just, man.
Are you totally getting the vibe? Well, kudos to you. You don't get brought back for 14 more episodes, or have the director say, "I'm pitching you as this character," if not for your talent, right? You immediately, like I said, you immediately connected to the audience. You could see the chemistry, you could see the background there. You could tell that you put the work in to develop this, the relationship and the characters, and that's why, obviously. And then, but hearing you talk, it's like not only are we getting this awesome perspective from you coming from playing the role in the character, but you could clearly tell you are a fan. You're just like dropping references to old school episodes and everything. It was like, no, I am clearly in on this. He needed a win. Come on. Like, that's so great that you can that, because how awesome is that to be a part of something that you're a fan of, right? That's like living the dream right there.
Absolutely living the dream. Absolutely living the dream. And I had wanted to be a part of Shondaland for so long that I was just studying. I thought I would. I was just studying by watching all the shows, and I would listen to Shonda's book Year of Yes on repeat.
Yes.
And just go for long walks and listen to her cadence and listen to. A lot of her values and the things that she talks about are reflected in the shows, even though she is no longer the showrunner of Station 19 or Grey's Anatomy. That's now Krista. But I wanted to be a part of it for so long. I actually have this chalkboard, and I would write down my goals. And when they're done, I would erase them. And Shondaland was on there for so long, it will not erase. Like the chalk worked its way into the chalkboard forever. I had just been like targeting it for so long.
That's because Inara is coming back. It won't go away because you're supposed to be coming back. You won't be able to erase it until your story's done, and it's clearly not done. That's all.
Oh my gosh, amazing! Thank you. This is so good.
And I want to flip because, like I said, I'm a huge Lonestar 911 fan, and that episode was so traumatic and just like broke my heart because. Who doesn't want people to show up for their birthday and then like nobody shows? First of all, you must be a very endearing mother because you get all these roles and you're like just like, oh, she cares about her son didn't get a birthday, and like but I mean, and okay, sure, the ice cream people showed up because of a horrible accident there, right? But hey, I loved the episode. I thought you did a fantastic job on it, and everybody needs to check that episode out if you haven't. But just the relationship between you and the son and the Rob Lowe, and going and saying, hey, man, it's all okay. It's all right. Such a good storyline. And I think the reason that one was really important is because if you miss those warning signs, if you don't reach out, if you don't try to help then, those are the kids that go on to have more problems and more missed signs and potentially dangerous, right? Potentially anything from suicide to anger to whatever, if you miss those signs. So I think that episode was so important to say, hey, look, as a parent or even just people outside, when there's something wrong, you've got to pay attention. You've got to notice what's so kudos for that, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I so appreciate that. Yeah, and I loved how it tied together with Rob's character's story, which is he was feeling a bit lost and lonely himself.
Exactly. Warning signs for adults too, right? Not just kids.
Gosh. Absolutely. And it took I think, to be his character and to say, you know what, let's take an ice cream truck and we're going to go back and we're going to put the sirens on and we're going to have a party for this kid.
Right.
I don't know. I just really love that there's sort of closing the gap between first responders, firefighters, policemen, and normal civilians.
Yes.
Close the gap. We're so much more similar to each other than we think. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool for sure. And I mean, that episode deals a lot with mental health, but mental health is so real in real life. So how do you deal with mental health in such a industry kind of full of rejection?
Woo!
Yeah.
How long do we have? That is hard. It is challenging.
Yeah.
It's really challenging, and it's a real thing. I think I've really done my best to reframe in my mind, not getting a role. I used to think of it as rejection, or we hear a lot about the word rejection, which just immediately when I hear it feels like a little tense. Yeah. And because I don't want not booking a role to have any impact on my feelings of self-worth.
Right.
Because it can so easily become that. If I'm not on set, if I'm not working, if I'm not taking a photo of me in my trailer, then I'm nothing. It's such a waste of my life to be thinking about it in that way, a waste of my energy. And also I just miss opportunities to show up and live a life. Yeah. If I'm constantly thinking about how I'm not booking this or not getting there. Now, okay, so I talk a good game. It's really challenging because there'll be, I put an audition on tape, like 2 weeks ago, and it was so fantastic. And then the casting calls and they want to see my demo reel. And I'm like, okay, it's so great, it's happening. Right. And then nothing, not even like they went another way or they're keeping you in mind for something else. You just hear nothing. And so some of the challenge is the way that the business works that you just don't hear. You get these signals that they liked it, they want to see more, just making sure that these dates are available, making sure that you're vaccinated, and then nothing. One thing that has helped me concretely is I try and plan something, schedule something for the day when I should hear the news. Whether that's I'll take my goddaughter to the zoo and we can just get lost in the zoo for quite a while, or there's a little trade museum in Los Angeles, or I'll plan to go to like the flower market, just something that I have scheduled so that I'm not only scheduled to wait and see if I'm approved by the powers that be.
There you go.
That helps a lot. Of course, then when you're done and you come home and you're like,
damn it.
Yeah. It's kind of like chop wood, carry water. You just got to keep doing the thing. Right. When you're feeling bad about yourself, great, schedule something. Feeling bad about yourself, call a friend. Feeling bad about yourself, get a coffee, get into motion. I think when I sort of like get a little isolated, just sit and fold into my phone or like watching crappy videos. The darkness can just grow upon itself.
It can.
So I just, the powers that, sorry, I'm going on a,
you're fine.
No, you're fine. You're good.
Guys. I feel like the amount of energy that I put into pulling myself out of it has to be equal or hopefully greater to the sort of force that pulls me down,
right?
Which is not hearing from anything. Do I even matter? I didn't get it. Someone must be more this, more that, more this. Also, I didn't even get to tell anyone, so no one knows. It can just be such a heavy gravitational pull to the dark side that we have to sort of pull ourselves with as much power as equal power or more to pull us to sort of the light side.
I love that. And a guest a couple of weeks ago said this, Tony Winters. He said that think of casting directors kind of like people who are looking to buy cars, and think of actors like certain cars. Maybe sometimes they're looking for a Mercedes-Benz. Maybe sometimes they're looking for that Lamborghini. Maybe sometimes they're looking for a Toyota. So if they didn't pick you this time around, they just weren't in the mood or looking for that certain type of car. So I thought that was a good piece of something that would help definitely my brain, because I'm an anxious mental health individual. So I feel like that would definitely help me. So I wanted to pass that along to basically anyone and everyone that we can talk to about that. So there you go.
I love that so much. And if I look at my track record, all those 14 auditions that I didn't book for the Shondaland world, if I had booked another role on Station 19 previously, or another role that year on Grey's Anatomy, I wouldn't have been eligible for
Inara. Yep.
So it's to remind myself that this no or this rejection is just sort of a redirection for the perfect collaboration to come down the road. So.
And you know, sometimes you mentioned that like you didn't hear anything, right? Sometimes they don't ever tell you, but they are waiting. They're like, wow, she blew us away, but that's not it. That's not the role. And and because we've had guests like that too. Jason Warner Smith pops in mind. He'd auditioned over and over and over and over for The Walking Dead, and he just never got it. When he finally did get a role, they told him, hey man, from the first day you auditioned, it was a yes. It just wasn't that role. And we waited and waited and waited until your role came, and that's where, you know, you got it. So sometimes when you don't hear anything, it doesn't mean you didn't blow them away. It doesn't mean that you didn't, you know, knock it out of the park. Just means they're waiting for something for you. And look what happened with you. It's a perfect example of, you know, you were meant to have that role. So that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Great transition to talking about the whole stability and the mental aspect of it all, because going into Blonde, right? I mean, Marilyn Monroe, you talk about all of the stuff, the mental game there that went on in that woman's life, that, you know, the changing of who you are and the domination from the studio system, and it's got to be this, and you've got to do this, and and the brilliance of her to adapt a persona, right? Marilyn was a persona. It was not a person. It was a persona, and she made that clear. I can turn it on and off, and yet still abused and still just, the victim of the system in those days. And it's just, talk about that. I mean, I'm so excited for this movie. I know. We should say this, though. This is based on a book that's a fictionalized version of Marilyn's life mixed with real, right? So there's some real characters that are real life people, but then some fictional people, and it's like this. So you talk about it.
Well, I'm so excited to see it. Just like you, I mean, just as I would be if I were not in the movie, I'd be like, oh, this is so exciting. And to see Ana de Armas transform into Marilyn. So she's already huge, right? She just kind of stole the show in Knives Out against all these, unbelievably established actors. I heard she was unbelievable in the new James Bond movie, which I haven't seen.
Yep.
She's already a Bond girl, but I think she's going to skyrocket beyond any of our expectations with this movie, because watching her on set, she was so good. She was just so good.
Yeah.
And there's a strength and a fragility that she was able to have happen simultaneously, that I think will be quite incredible to see, because I was able to see it, for the scenes that we were in together. I can't wait to see it over who knows how long, a 2 year,
Right.
2 hour film, 2.5. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a long script, and I know that they're trying to make it Netflix rated.
Like NC-17, right? It's kind of like controversial, right? Without giving too much away, or if you know or don't know, but I know in the book there's like this. If I remember reading it correctly, there was this a first audition for Norma Jean when she goes in or whatever, and she's like brutally raped by the studio chief, and then is told she got the role because of her performance. Do they address that in the film? Is there those type reasons why this thing is trying to be NC-17?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that character's name is Mr. Z, although I might be incorrect, faulty memory. That's I think they're fighting to keep scenes like that in, because I think it actually, taking it outside of like Marilyn Monroe in Hollywood, sexual assault
right
impacts people for a lifetime.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And it impacts their behaviors, and it impacts how they see the world and how protective they are of themselves against the world, how they might put up a persona to sort of not let people see the real them. So I from what I read, they're fighting to keep scenes like that in there. And I think it's important, because that's not just from the time, and it's not just Marilyn that had that happen.
Right.
That's right.
I was reading yesterday, Eliza Dushku testified in front of Congress about how she was silently fired from her show Bull after she complained about some awful jokes and things that were happening to her on set. And she said it was the worst experience of her career. but she also has, and I hope this is okay and appropriate for this podcast.
Yeah.
But
If you listen to any of our past episodes,
for it, yeah.
we rip on this situation. You're fine.
okay. She talked about when she was doing True Lies as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and the stunt coordinator sexually assaulted her,
Right.
and then failed to keep her safe, and she fell and broke a rib, I believe.
Yes.
So this doesn't just happen in the 1950s in the studio system of Hollywood, Los Angeles, before social media. This is happening in still in the exact same way and still in different ways, in shades and shadows, and I think it could be a really powerful example of what one woman who we think of as iconic and glamorous had to go through, and how is that still happening? How much has Hollywood changed? So if Netflix allows all parts of this film to be kept in, I think it's going to be as incredibly powerful. So.
Because it does affect so much, like you said, with putting up the persona or how you do. But even beyond that, to the inability or ability for relationships. I mean, look at her relationship with Joe DiMaggio, or I mean, just so many people where she just was not able to make that work because obviously, when you have that type of trauma happen, that makes it really hard to like be seriously involved with somebody because you're always fearful, you're always in doubt, and I mean, it's just so important. And I mean, let's talk about your role, because a lot of people don't realize that the mental health game with Marilyn, it started with family. It wasn't just the studio system and Hollywood that kind of played that mental game with her. It started at home. So, Ty, you play the nurse who took care of her mother, right? In the psychiatric ward. So talk about that and the role a little bit.
Yeah, well, you're so spot on that it's not just like she went to Hollywood and that's when things went awry. She lived in foster care as a kid.
That's right.
Her mother had some pretty severe mental illness and was hospitalized, and Marilyn was placed with families. Sorry, my mind is going a million different places.
No, you're fine.
You're good.
So we shot in this abandoned care facility in a place called Diamond Bar, which is kind of far away and in the middle of nowhere. And the women who filled in the atmosphere, what are typically called background actors or the extras, gave incredible performances that I don't know we'll ever quite see get as much sort of light shined on them as possible because they're in the background. But these women were they had done so much research and were dressed in what looked like burlap sacks, and were sort of unshowered and like chain smoking, and some of them had intellectual disabilities, but were sort of grouped in with those who had emotional disorders as well. So just to sort of see that in action, it kind of takes your breath away. And so for Marilyn to be already in that system for so many years before anyone knew her as Marilyn Monroe is quite powerful. In fact, I think she married her first husband maybe at 17 just to get out of foster care.
Right.
Wow.
Her first, you talked about like Joe DiMaggio and Arthur Miller, who are played by Bobby Cannavale and Adrian Brody in the movie. Her marriage is having trouble, but if the first time you have a marriage, it's because you just wanted to get out of foster care because of abuse or neglect or whatever, you're just not set up for success unless you have massive amounts of therapy, and trauma healing. But even when she did do massive amounts of therapy, she was seen as sort of a wacko,
Yeah.
She needs all this stuff and she has her analyst with her all the time. So, I just think it's going to be an incredible movie when it's out on Netflix.
Yeah, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, they should hire you for the marketing department.
Just saying.
that was incredible. Like, I'm a huge fan already anyway, and that made me even more like, oh my gosh, yeah. You get it. You get it. Like, see, I'm, like I said at the top of the show, hardcore Marilyn Monroe fan. And so I love talking to people who get it. Like, that there's so much more than just what you know. And, it's just so good. So good.
Totally.
Oh my
Totally.
gosh.
I know. I got like goosebumps. I'm
Yeah.
ready to watch it right now. Is there any sort of release date at the moment, or?
No, I thought it was actually going to be out around. I thought it was going to be out around this time this year because
Right.
I really do think she will win awards for this.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Anna.
so too.
I do think it's that they're looking at sort of getting it from an NC-17 to perhaps an R rating. But we shot it about half a year before the pandemic, so we even shot it before the Bond movie that she filmed. So it's been wrapped for quite a while. I just think they're sort of ironing out a couple of details.
Trying to navigate everything.
So unfortunately, maybe another year because like award season, we know when it is, right? You put it so we could be December of 2022. Damn it. But to be fair, it like from hearing you just talk about her performance, you gotta hold it. You gotta hold it for award season, right? Like, I mean, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do.
And I mean, here is the hardest question of the whole entire interview. I hope you're ready.
Ready.
Do you like jelly beans? Do you like popcorn?
Ooh, yes, I like jelly beans and popcorn.
We just discovered today, right before the show, that they make popcorn flavored jelly beans. Yes.
A Jelly Belly brand?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I know about this.
They're delicious.
Yeah, they're good.
They're so delicious.
Yes.
Because for me anyway, there's like the popcorn flavor, but it's also sweet. It's not like okay, so the Jelly Belly factory is in Wisconsin.
Okay. Well, then
Full circle.
Wow. Who knew that was coming all the way back around?
Right?
That's fantastic.
I just had a feeling to bring this up.
That's so funny.
That's great.
We were literally eating mouthfuls before the show. Like, it's like, come on, let's try them.
That's awesome. Awesome. I love that.
Okay. Well, we know what you've been watching because it's Shondaland everything, right? And we know, so we normally ask that kind of fun stuff because, the pandemic or when you were in lockdown, what were you watching and everything. But we got that. So we want to know because I think you probably have a good one. I'm banking on this.
Think so.
What is your most embarrassing moment on stage or filming that you were just horrified by when it happened, but kind of laugh at it now?
Okay, can I tell you an audition story?
Sure,
of course,
absolutely.
Okay, I was auditioning for it was bad. I was auditioning for a commercial, and it was for a cough drop, Hall's cough drop. So I was like a store cashier at a grocery store, and this drill sergeant is like screaming in my face, and this older gentleman who was dressed in his old army gear was screaming in my face, and his breath was so bad that I vomited.
Oh no!
Was not expecting that.
That I vomited. And
wow.
So we finished a take, and they were like, "Okay, we're gonna set up." And I said, "I'm so sorry. Oh God, I'm so sorry." And I grabbed the garbage can and vomited in the room. And I was like, and then when I was done, I was like, I'm just gonna go take this to the bathroom. So I took it into the bathroom, threw it away, and I came back, and I was like, "Should we do another one?" But his I felt so bad for him because it's that kind of bad breath where you're like, oh, your insides are not good. Like your organs are on they're not.
So how did that end up going? Did you get the role?
I didn't get the role. I was never invited back to audition there. And I feel like I could have. I feel like I could have told them, like, just FYI, this is why I threw up.
Right.
But I didn't want to embarrass that man.
Right.
See,
So I thought I'd just come on here and tell the story.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
mean, look, professional
Yeah.
all the way. And how rotten is that? You are a complete professional. You don't rat the guy out, and I feel like you didn't get the role, but because of the guy with bad breath. That
Yeah.
is just so not cool. But it's a great story. It's a great story.
Thank you.
Maybe it should have been about breath mints instead of cough drops.
Right.
And the whole
It
thing would have
should
been
have
like,
been, yeah.
you need a breath mint. Maybe that would have been better. I don't know. Oh, my goodness.
Goodness.
Yeah, that was really rough.
Okay, so one more thing before we kind of wrap it up or whatever, because you are clearly a very intelligent woman. You clearly have a really strong grasp of the industry and how it all works and everything. And my mind is circling back to the top when you were talking about ages, right? You got to get in at certain ages and you got to get in for certain things. And unfortunately, I think that's just a beast that's still happening, especially with women in the industry, right or wrong, and it's definitely wrong, but it is what it is. Any goals to move behind the camera? Because I feel like that's the transition, right? Like when they age you out, which is total bullshit, but when they age you out, right? Any kind of ambitions for that? Do you see yourself moving behind the camera in some sort of a capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love to have a say in the kind of stories that I tell, which just sort of naturally, outside of sort of the aging out of it, makes me very interested in producing.
Sure.
When my first couple of years in LA, I produced a short film, and it was an adaptation of the book Fahrenheit 451 by Ray
yes.
Bradbury. That had sort of been like an ultimate role that I would have wanted to play, an ultimate type. So I adapted a little piece of it and filmed it, and I actually got it to Ray before. This is, when he was still with us here on Earth.
Sure.
I got it to him, and he loved it, and left a voicemail that I like transcribed and still look at from time to time
Oh
when I
my
need to listen.
goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it was hard because I was doing it myself. It was really hard. I mean, it's set in the future, and I was trying to find a location, and spent a lot more money than I had to rent a location. I rented a cemetery because I feel like even in the future, hopefully cemeteries will still remain,
Right.
I couldn't do any special effects, but I was like, cemeteries will hopefully remain
Right.
intact. So I would like to do more producing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
A friend of mine from college recommended me for a short film. And we did it about 2.5 years ago, had a freaking blast together. And the guys who I did it with, who I was meeting for the first time, we're hoping to sort of spin that into a feature that we can do. And I'd love to know more about that. Even if I don't get a credit or, have that as an official job, I'd love to see what other people do behind the scenes so that perhaps I can I'd like to collect all the nice people in LA and produce things with them all the time.
Well, kudos to you, because producing is no joke. It is not easy, and it is challenging, and especially when you're doing it with no money and you're trying to do that. So we know we had to rent that college, and whoo boy, that was not cheap. And I was like, oh, that's a bit more money than we thought. Hold on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we're right there with you, and God bless you for doing it, because I don't hear a whole lot of people say, I want to produce.
Yeah, right.
It's like, no. But good.
Yeah.
Good. We need more qualified producers.
Yes, and talk about needing some, mental health services.
Right.
I want to produce. I should probably get a therapist on call.
Yeah, therapists are lining up all as you speak.
Totally.
It's like, okay, all right.
That's so great. That's so great. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on and getting a little crazy with us on Inside the Crazy Ant Farm.
Yes.
We appreciate it. And I mean, we could have talked for like 2 more hours.
Oh, absolutely.
You're just so fun, so down to earth, and full of all of this knowledge. I would love to know if you had a little study guide of everything that you compiled, learning and interviewing people before you went out to LA. I mean, that's just so freaking cool. Maybe you should write a book. Maybe the study guide about going out to LA.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate that so much. I too could have chatted with you guys for several more hours. I appreciate the kindness and the camaraderie.
Oh, absolutely. And hey, not only open invite to come back on the show, because you're just an absolute gem to talk to and everything, but hopefully maybe some down the line we'll collaborate on something, because, oh my gosh, you're just behind the camera or in front of the camera. You're just fantastic. Can't imagine that we would not want to work with you. So, I mean, that'd be just amazing.
Thank you guys so much. I
Of
really
course.
appreciate it.
Of course. And let everybody know where you can follow you because, it's all about social media now.
Sure, it is. So my handles on Instagram and Twitter are Colleen Foy. My website is colleenfoy.com.
Fantastic.
Yeah, not very interesting, but truth in advertising. It's Colleen Foy. So there you go. There you go.
I love it. I love it. Well, take care, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you guys so much. Really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You
Bye-bye.
too.
Man, oh man, she was absolutely amazing.
Oh my gosh, that smile and just the infectious, like, cheerful attitude and everything. But man, dove deep.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, she was not scared to get into it.
Exactly, man, exactly. And I wasn't kidding either. She should really write a book of her little study guide of all the interviews and different things. I feel like that would be very successful.
Oh my gosh, if you're thinking about getting into acting, read this study guide.
Right?
Just spiral it up. It could be just like a little checklist kind of. Oh my gosh,
Exactly.
she'd make a killing off that.
She was absolutely amazing and so humble and just so willing to help other people out too.
Just unbelievable. I love good people.
Exactly.
And she is clearly good people. So,
Agreed, man. Agreed. Thank you again, Miss Colleen, for coming on the show.